So thank you very much for inviting me to your conference. My name is Daniela Tews. I work at the Deutsche Kinderhilfswerk in Berlin. We, as a children's rights organization, are watching with proud and very thankful to Poland, because Poland is the country which presented the first drafts for a Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1979 to the UN General Assembly. And this was the basic for the Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. So thank you very much for this initiative. Yes, this is the structure of my short presentation, but because of the time, I will continue directly to the next one. Let me shortly introduce the Coordination Office for Children's Rights within Deutsches Kinderhilfswerk. We are or a team of 5 employees, and we are supported by the Federal Ministry of Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth, in the time frame of March 27 to December 2019. And we monitor the implementation of the Council of Europe's strategy for the rights of the child in Germany from both technical and political points of view. And also our job is the coordination and implementation of projects, as well as the development of political actions to strengthen children's rights in Germany and at the European level. So at first I want to give you some general facts about the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. I'm sure all of you have already heard of the UN Convention. It is one of the human rights conventions, and it was enacted in 1989. It is ratified by all countries of the world except the USA. And it includes 55 articles, while the articles 1 to 41 are addressing civil, political, social, economical, and cultural rights, and the others are rules for monitoring and implementation of the convention. 4 articles of the convention are just like a standardizing frame to strengthen all the other articles of the rights of the convention. And these 4 articles are main principles, or general principles, and these are the non-discrimination in Article 2, the best interest of the child in Article 3, the right to life in Article 6, and the right to participation in Article 12. Also, we can separate the rights of the convention into 3 pillars, and these are the triple P: the rights to protection, the rights to provision, and the rights to participation. This is very important to us because we always have to find the balance between these 3 pillars, and as we find most time, the rights of protection are the biggest one in our mind, but the rights to participation are sometimes absolutely missing. Yes, and one last fact down is that the children that we talk about are humans under the age of 18 in the convention. Yes, so what does the convention have to do with the digital world? A short view on the history shows that the enactment of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child was in 1989, and at the same time, Tim Berners-Lee published and made accessible to everyone the program code of the World Wide Web, regardless of age. And both of them, the convention and the digitization, have changed our world in a strong way. Also the living environment of children. Article 3 of the CRC and Article 24 of the European Charter of Fundamental Rights make clear that the best interest of the child is of primary importance to all decisions and actions affecting the child. And this gives us a kind of a guideline or a mission to all of our actions in our daily work or practice. So I selected some, or the 6 mainly areas of law which have been touched in the digital world. These are the right to access to mass media in Article 17, the right to freedom of expression and information in Article 13, the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association in Article 15, the right to participation and play in the Articles 12 and 31, the right to privacy and data protection in Article 16, and the right to education and media literacy in Article 28. I'm going to pick just some of them in detail in the following presentation. The last 2 days we have heard from all the advantages and disadvantages of the service the digital world brings to us and also to our children. They are based on the provision and processing of a large amount of data. As we also heard the last days, digitization is creating a variety of opportunities for acquiring information and expressing one's own opinion of a large number of people. Children use media independently and individually on their respective interests and needs. Especially the internet plays a natural role as a leisure and social space. I start with the right to access to media. That means every child has the right to unrestricted access to and equal access to the digital world. And this access should be granted without discrimination. It links to the Article 2 of the Convention, which is one of the main principles I mentioned before. This access should be granted without discrimination of any kind, irrespective of the child's or his or her parents' or legal guardians' race, color, gender, language, religion, political or other opinion, the national, ethnic or social origin, property, disability, birth or status. Digitization facilitates new types and phenomena of discrimination. For example, cyberbullying or hate speech, which are spread widely via social media and thereby multiply the effects of discrimination. The next one is the right to freedom of expression and information. Every child has the right to freedom of expression, online and offline. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing or in print, in the form of art or through any other media of the child's choice. Digitization yields countless new possibilities for people to acquire information and to make one's opinion known to a wide range of other people. For children not to be exposed to unreasonable risk while retaining their right to unrestricted freedom of expression and information, the digital environment must provide mechanisms of protection that take into account children's age and abilities. The third one I selected is the right to privacy and data protection. Online and offline, no child shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his or her privacy, family or correspondence, nor to unlawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation. For instance, the online publication of a picture without consent of the child that is depicted can be a violation of this right. The protection of the private sphere can, in the course of digitization, only be achieved through adequate data protection on the internet and in social networks. It is necessary to guarantee that personal data like name, address, and phone number are not collected or transferred to third parties without consent of the child. The child has a right to legal protection against interference or violation of these rights, as you can read in the CRC in Article 16.2. Users need to be empowered for the execution of these rights and for self-protection in order to be able to live a self-determined and confident life in the digital world. And now I want to address the right to protection and safety because it corresponds to the topic of the GDPR. In all areas of life, both online and offline, children must be protected from any form of violence, abuse, negligence, and mistreatment, as it is to be read in Article 19. Along with guidelines and laws that serve the purpose of protecting children, appropriate technical provisions must be implemented while empowering children for self-protection in the digital world. Protection and safety in the digital world arises from a mix of instruments and children's empowerment for self-protection. It is the duty of parents and pedagogues in educational institutions to promote the empowerment of children, while governments have to provide the legal framework and preconditions. And the GDPR is one of these legal preconditions. Yes, these are some facts of the GDPR, but I'm sure some of you, most of you have already known that. But I want to point out again the threshold for autonomous consent of the age of 16 from a children's rights perspective. To us, this threshold of 16 means a restriction of a couple of rights. For example, the right to access, the right to freedom of expression, the right to participation and play, and the right to education and digital literacy. This is the origin text of the GDPR, Article 8, but I won't read it again loudly. Yes, another article of the GDPR is interesting to us as children's rights organization. We find one moment, please. Yes, what I just wanted to say about Article 8 in this GDPR is that we find problematic for us that we do not see here the balance between protection and participation rights, and only to ban children from media can't be in their best interest, how it is regulated in Article 3 of the UN CRC. But now again to Article 12 of the GDPR. This is an interest to us. It concentrates the transparent informations, communication, and modalities for the exercise of the rights of the data subject. It addresses the responsibility and commitment of the providers of digital services. There are many things to do, we find, because the status of intransparency and disorientation for children, parents, and also pedagogues is unacceptable. And therefore, there are still, after the implementation, still left many questions that we have to ask, and we have to debate and to discuss. And we have to talk with children and youth, with parents and pedagogues, with providers and companies, as well as with politicians. And these are only a few variety of questions we have to ask regarding this GDPR. For instance, how can online counseling centers for children who need support without the knowledge of their parents do their work with legal security when parents have to consent the data processing? Thank you very much.